You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. And full transparency, I've been fighting a little bit of a virus. So if my voice sounds a little bit funny, a little bit strange, I do apologize. If it doesn't, then what did you expect? I'm an absolute pro. No, I'm kidding. But just in case, yeah, like I said, you're sitting there going, that sounds a little bit weird. Then that's probably why. But yeah, week 16. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. Week 16 in the books for the Premier League. And of course, before we get started, we have to start with the Maple Start. So let's kind of look at what our favorite Canadians were up to this weekend. So over the week, not the weekend, I guess, technically, Stefan Eustáquio grabbed an assist in the Europa League for Porto. Jonathan David in the Champions League got the game-winning assist for Lille in the Champions League. So just shows, even if he's not scoring to help them win, he's providing the game-winning assist. So whoever is going to get him for free, oh my goodness, what a bargain they will be getting. Junior Hoylett also grabbed a brace over Kyle Larin grabbed a brace. Sorry, I have Larin written under Hoylett. Hoylett grabbed an assist for Hibs over the weekend, and spoiler, Kyle Larin got a brace for Mallorca. And there was a Canadian-esque derby with Lille versus Marseille. Cornelius saw the final 15. Kone remained on the bench still. Good to see Derek Cornelius kind of being eased back after the injury. Because we don't want to see him rushed in or nothing like that. With Ishmael Kone, I hope that he starts getting minutes because I really don't understand why he's not. I understand that apparently De Zerbi, as I've kind of touched on before, is maybe a little bit underwhelmed with Ishmael Kone, but Ishmael Kone is such a talented player. It just feels like such a waste for him to just be rotting on the bench because you're disappointed in his performance. Maybe this is a managerial tactic, though. Maybe he's trying to rile Kone up. I don't know. Feels very movie to me, so that's probably not the case. But you never know. Maybe that is the case. Alistair Johnston did, in fact, with Celtic, win his 6th trophy over the weekend. So yeah, he's not doing too bad. It's the Sports Cup. I think it's the equivalent of like the Carabao Cup in the Premier League, or the Super Coppa in Italy. So not a bad one to get, number 6. He's only been there, 2.5 years now? 3 years, I think. That's absurd. Getting a trophy every time he sneezes, that boy. But yeah, he's doing great. Alistair Johnston, what a man and a legend, actually, in my opinion. The CONCACAF Champions Cup draws have been made, and our 3 Canadian teams have figured out who they will be facing. Forge will be facing Monterrey. The Whitecaps will be facing Deportivo Saprissa. My Spanish is no bueno, so I do apologize if anyone who is listening to this speaks Spanish and has to hear me pronounce these in Spanish. And then, of course, finally, Cavalry will be facing Pumas. So those are our 3 Canadian representatives. Hopefully, maybe one of them could make a run. It would be very nice. It would be very, very nice. I mean, it isn't easy, especially against the Mexican sides. The Mexican sides are always extremely good, especially in this competition. But hey, you never know. Anything can happen. And another draw did also happen in Canadian football. The Canadian Championship draw was made notably for me. I'm not going to go through all the brackets or nothing, but notably for me, Forge faces Halifax, and the winner of that game faces Toronto and Montreal. I'm really hoping that Forge and Toronto can beat their respective opponents and move into the next round, because those two teams always seem to kind of make magic, and you can kind of feel the underlying rivalry kind of starting to really burn, and it's just, I think, a lot of fun. So it would be very nice to see that game get played. And finally, though, as we move into our last little story, we're going to stick with Forge, as Dynasty Dom, Big Dom Samuel, has officially left the club after 6 seasons. He won 5 trophies, really 6, but the league never recognized Forge's first league title win. But yes, officially 5, unofficially 6 trophies in his 6 years. A Forge original, and definitely a great proponent of the CPL, and just seemed to be a real great guy. The Barton Street Battalion absolutely loved him. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you to Dom Samuel for his years with Forge and with the CPL. I don't know where he's going next, where the roads will take him, but I wish him nothing but the absolute best. He was an absolute joy to watch. So it was a pleasure to have him in Forge, and I hope for the best for him. But yeah, with the Maple start concluding, you know what that means, baby. Prem recap time. So we kind of know how this already goes. Segment 1, match of the weekend. 2, biggest winners of the weekend. 3, biggest underperformers of the weekend. 4, best performance. 5, moment of the weekend. 6, relegation zone. 7, European places. And 8, the title race. And before we get started, 2 managers were relieved of their duties this weekend. Gary O'Neill of Wolves and Russell Martin of Southampton. Gary O'Neill for Wolves, I think, never really got a fair shake, if I'm being honest. And I'm not saying from the Wolves organization. I mean from the Premier League itself, PGMOL or whatever the association is properly called. I can't be bothered to give them the time to look it up, if I'm being honest, because I think they're a joke of an organization. So he constantly found himself getting just screwed over by the refs, and nothing was ever done of it. He really never called them out. The only one time comes to mind where he basically just said, like, the big boys kind of get those calls, but we kind of don't. That's really, off the top of my head, the closest he ever came to calling it out. So better man than I think most of us, because if you go back and look at some of the calls that went against Wolves at detrimental times, you'd be wondering how he wasn't just going mad every single week, it seems. So I just feel as though he never really got a fair shake. Now, I think this season, it hasn't, obviously Wolves have not been great, but yeah, I just do really feel for him. And then Russell Martin at Southampton, he always had his back against the wall. Let's be honest. It was always going to be a tough task. I don't think there really is a manager in world football that I can think of, at least, that I would go, yeah, they're good. Southampton, he's got them. They'll keep him up. So I just think it's a case of just, I don't want to say just inequipped, because I don't think it's fully his fault, but yeah, just definitely would have always been a struggle for him to keep them up. And I do just feel for him, because the first guy to go is sadly always the manager. It's just how the sport works, and that's just kind of the price you pay for being a manager, I guess, right? You know, it's easier to change one manager than an entire team. So I do think it'll be interesting, because I feel like both these teams will, theoretically, since they're kind of neck and neck in the table, be going for the same kind of managers. So I'm going to be kind of interested to see the list of managers that they both write up and are going to try to go out and get, because you got to assume that they'll be doing it very quickly. But anyways, let us move officially into the actual Prem stuff, and it is the match of the weekend. And the matches, I feel like we were treated to some really good ones this weekend, I thought. I mean, sorry about that, the cold is striking. I would say, I think for real good back and forth action, I think you kind of have to put Liverpool and Fulham in contention here, because it was just real good back and forth. I mean, starting out in the first minute, Fulham get a yellow card, which is very funny to me. And then, 6 minutes later, Luis Diaz goes, "Oh no, you won't be alone very long with that yellow, sir." He gets himself a yellow. And then, Fulham take the lead at Anfield, which is obviously no small feat. And then Andy Robertson gets himself sent off. There's apparently people are saying that maybe he shouldn't have been sent off. I don't want to really get into all that. If it was technically the wrong call, I will be interested if Liverpool will appeal it and win. So we'll kind of see about that, I guess. But yeah, I just think regardless of if it is or isn't a red, I think you expect a little bit more from Andy Robertson. To be putting your team down barely 15 minutes into the game, to be putting them down one man while you're already down a goal, I think kind of sums up his last couple seasons with Liverpool, in the sense that I don't think he's been that impressive and hasn't really helped the team all that much. Now, I say this being actually a very big Andy Robertson fan. I think he's been one of the best left backs in the world for probably the last 7-8 years. But yeah, these last season or two, he just hasn't been that Andy Robertson, and he's doing himself no favors here, in my opinion. Like I said, if you think it's a red, if you don't think it's a red, if it gets called back and reappealed and all that jazz, I just think it's a bad position to put your team in. He should know better than to be doing something like that. Me personally, now to totally contradict myself, I think it was a harsh red card from what I saw. But still, I think as a captain, he's captain of the Scotland national team and one of the leaders in the Liverpool locker room, one would believe. I just really think you have to expect a little bit better from him. Like I said, it's a bit harsh, yes, but I do think that a little bit better needs to be expected. But Cody Gakpo continues his very fine form. I think one of the performers that's kind of flying under the radar this season, especially with Liverpool, because I've been very impressed with Cody Gakpo. I think when he came in after the World Cup to Liverpool back in, the World Cup was 22, and then he came in 2023. So back in 2023, when Liverpool kind of got him, I think everybody expected they were getting the Cody Gakpo from the 2022 World Cup, and that just wasn't the case. He was being played as a striker at that World Cup. He's not a striker, and it didn't translate into being a striker at Liverpool. Not to say he was bad, but they were expecting we got a striker now, and that wasn't the case, and that's okay because I think he's done his job really well, kind of at times slotting as a left wing or even in the midfield. I think he's been very good, and especially this season, like I said, Arne Slot has really trusted him to go out there and be on that kind of left flank or even occupying almost a number 10-esque role. But I really like him on the left. That's where he plays for the Netherlands now. And like at the Euros, when I was covering the Euro stuff, I thought he was one of the performers of the tournament there. And I think he's been very good for Liverpool here. He throws his body on the line for the goal to drag them back into it. Just kind of shows that hunger and desire that you kind of want to see. So yeah, it's just really nice to see Cody Gakpo really performing. Just so I give him his flowers. I don't really think I've properly given him his flowers this season just yet. But yeah, he definitely deserves it. He's been one of the top performers, I think, for Liverpool. And you could probably make the case for one of the top performers in the league this season, if I'm being honest. So just want to give him his flowers right there. But then all hope kind of seemed lost for Liverpool as they concede again 2 assists for Robinson on the day. I know he's American, I'm Canadian, but he is a very good player. I'll give him his credit where his credit is due. I mean, if he was playing for Canada, I don't think he'd get in because we have Davies at left back, but whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, in all seriousness, he is a very good player, and he's really matured in front of our eyes, I think, and he's become a top left back in the Prem, and he's very vital to what this Fulham team does. Him bombing down the wing for 90 minutes is crazy, and he never looks tired. Like, he looks like he could run for days, and I think Fulham really use that to their advantage. They know that he has such a quick recovery pace, so even when he's up the pitch, they kind of know that he can get back if need be. And credit to him, he does. Credit to him, he very much does. But yeah, he provides 2 assists on the day, and it looks like he provides the winner on the day. Great ball for Rodrigo. And then Diogo Costa. Diogo Jota ends up coming in with 10 minutes to go, scores just 6 minutes later. It's a great goal. And I mean, it is such a shame for Liverpool fans, I would say, because I feel like they have their striker, because I always say I think Liverpool needs a striker. They have him. It is Jota. They have the striker. He's just never healthy, which is a shame. As someone that supports many a player who are injury prone, I can understand the hurt of watching a player do wonders for your team 3 times a season, and then they just go out injured. So yeah, I mean, it's just a classic kind of back and forth Prem action. 2-2 is probably the fair result if we're being honest. Fulham continues to impress me, and Liverpool continues to kind of show a couple of cracks whilst not showing that they're, losing. They're still getting points, but kind of showing some cracks along the way. If you want an extremely one-sided affair, I think look no further than Newcastle-Leicester or Tottenham-Southampton. We'll start with Newcastle-Leicester. But yeah, I mean, manager bounce over ? For Leicester, because it's another just 4-0 loss. And I mean, I've already said my feelings and thoughts on this Leicester side many a time. In the last 5 weeks, or 5 match days, I should say. Not impressed. I don't think this managerial bounce is going to do anything. I mean, it started out with a 4-1 loss to Brentford, and then they won against West Ham and have now drawn and lost their last 2. So, yeah, I mean, is anything really going to change? I don't really think so. They came up against Newcastle. Newcastle just never looked like they were going to lose this one. I mean, it was only a matter of time until they got their first goal. And then once they did, it was game over, really. They got another in the 47th, another in the 50th, and then a final in the 60th. And I think at that point, Newcastle just kind of played out the game. It was like men against boys. I don't know. Something about this Leicester side just really rubs me the wrong way. I don't think they should have enough to stay up, but they may have 3 teams that are worse than them, and that will be why they stay up. But yeah, in no world should this Leicester team be avoiding relegation. I think quite frankly, they're just bad. I do still really like James Justin, by the way, but yeah, this Leicester team's just no good. Newcastle, though, when they're flying, they're flying. They're a lot of fun to watch when they're in form. Just depends on what Newcastle you're going to get. They go out. So their last 3 games have been 3-3 with Liverpool, 4-2 loss to Brentford, and then a 4-0 win against Leicester. That's very bipolar, very inconsistent. And then if you want to go back through their form chart and all that, I mean, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of some wins, loss, draws. They've been extremely inconsistent. So for a team that wants to be fighting back to getting into Europe, you need to find the consistency. And I know they're not it's not like they're super far off it. They are in 12th, but they are sitting on 23 points, which is by no means at this point in the season. They're not far off from those 5th, 6th places, really. So they're, 5th place is City in 27 points, and right below them is Bournemouth with 25. So Newcastle on 23. You're not super far off it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's one of those matches where it's a really one-sided thumping. And the other one of the weekend was Tottenham. And if we want to talk inconsistent, the poster boys of that are Tottenham. The one thing that Tottenham are consistent with is the fact that they are inconsistent. So I guess it's kind of ironic that way. But yeah, they were in full swing on the weekend, thumping Southampton 5-0. And the Southampton boss, Russell Martin, who, of course, as I touched upon, has been sacked, but he went to the lockers early. Like, he went to the dressing room early, in like only like a minute or so, maybe 90 seconds early. It was 4-0. The half ended at 5. So now, like, walk with me here. Now I just, like, envision, like, Russell Martin just standing at the, like, front of the dressing room, watching everyone file in once halftime has finally been called. They all kind of sit down, and he just kind of looks at the boys and says, 4-0, it's not good enough. And, like, his assistant coach or manager then has to walk up to him and go, sir, it's actually 5. And then Russell Martin then has to, in real time, go, oh, you guys conceded in the minute that I didn't watch the game. That's crazy. I just kind of find that weirdly funny. Sorry. But yeah, no, I mean, James Maddison on the day was the James Maddison that you want to watch consistently, but the James Maddison you don't always get consistently. He was really running the show against Southampton. Seems to really like Southampton, by the way. I believe he featured in that Leicester side all those years ago that thumped them 9-0. Dejan Kulusevski, who shouldn't be playing, by the way. I think he probably should have gotten a red card against Chelsea, but that's none of my business. Gets a goal. Son Heung-min gets a goal as well does Sarr, who gets another. But, I mean, you want to talk about one-sided thumpings, 5-0 away to Southampton. Yeah, that's a thumping to me, if ever there was one. So, sorry, Southampton. I really don't see them staying up from here. And sorry, Tottenham, because I don't see you building on this. But it's a nice day out, I guess. Moving into the biggest winners of the weekend. Step up Ipswich. Let's start things at the bottom of the table here. Ipswich with a massive win to kind of cut that deficit to 2 points between them and safety. And as you know, if you've been listening to these recaps, I've been kind of a neutral for Ipswich, really rooting them on, really wanting to see them stay up after a 22-year absence in the Prem. I think it'd be great to see them stay up. I really do, honestly. So it was great to watch them win. It was great to watch them win over Wolves, and that's, I say over Wolves, but that's massive, especially in terms of the relegation race, because these two teams are both kind of rooted in these bottom three at the moment. But it's big. I think it's real big for Ipswich, because for most of the game they were leading it through an own goal from Matt Doherty. If you have seen it, it is a very strange goal. I would definitely recommend going to watch that goal. But then Cunha, as Cunha has been doing all season, tries to bail Wolves out, grabs a goal in the 72nd, and then we're riding it out in injury time. Ipswich gets a corner. You're thinking, okay, Wolves got some height. They might be able to clear this, whatever. But no, Jack Taylor steps up, scores a very nice goal. Liam Delap ends up getting booked on the bench at the time, which is very funny. Liam Delap, by the way, one of the performers of the season, if you ask me as well, by the way. But yeah, and then Ait Nori gets sent off in the dying moments. But yeah, this is about Ipswich, and I think it's massive for them. Like I said, pipping Wolves to 3 points, especially in the manner that they did, because I know this has happened to Ipswich on a few different occasions where they haven't seen out the game. So it was nice to kind of see them maybe learn from that a little bit and see how to kind of grab a late winner. And I think it's huge. I really think that this could be huge for them, especially with Leicester really underperforming, Wolves underperforming. And those are the two teams that they're really sandwiched in between. So I think it could be very big for Ipswich, just 2 points off of that safety right now. I think it's massive, and this could see them maybe hopefully kick on from here. But we'll have to wait and see. Another massive winner for the weekend, Nottingham Forest. I think absolutely huge for them, beating Aston Villa. Yeah, another team who kind of beats someone that they're in and around in the league, just kind of the flip side of the table here. Instead of the relegation zone, it's kind of those chasing Europe. Nottingham Forest ended the weekend in 4th, guys. They're ahead of City. Are we not deeping this right now? Nottingham Forest is in 4th place. Guys, this isn't the 80s or 90s when Nottingham Forest was in their heyday. This is 2024. Like, this is big. No one predicted Nottingham Forest to be doing this well, I don't think. Like, outside of Nottingham Forest fans, probably, because, you blindly root for your team. But this is massive. A big 2-1 win over Aston Villa. And Aston Villa, who, yes, they've had shaky form recently, but have still had a very good season. Nottingham Forest pipped them 2-1, and it's another late winner. It's a late turnaround. John Duran gives Villa the lead in the 63rd, but then Nottingham Forest, don't say die. They score a goal that's ruled out by VAR in the 84th. So it's still 1-0 Villa in the 84th, and Forest now have to deal with the fact, oh shoot, like, goal was scored and then taken away from you. But not to worry, 3 minutes later, and they score in the 87th, then in the 93rd minute, they grab the winner. So basically what Ipswich did in their game, Forest did in this game. It's very interesting, really, when you think about it. But I think it's huge for Forest. Both of these teams really are chasing down those European spots, and I think it's great. A little sidebar, one of my favorite parts of this season so far has been that pack of teams that I kind of have called them like the middle pack, where like you have your Forest, your Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, Brentford, Brighton, all just performing out of their skin right now. And I know Brentford, but they're in 11th place. Yeah, but they're in 11th place by goal difference, tied on points with Spurs right now, and just like a point outside of like this batch of team. It's been just a whole ton of fun to watch, because this is what we want. We want different teams challenging for Europe, and any of these teams I could see them genuinely finishing in European places, whether it's the Champions League, the Conference League, Europa League, whatever. I could genuinely see it happening. I think that's absolutely massive. But for Forest, I think it's huge. This is huge to finish this weekend in 4th. I would love to see them honestly ride this out until the end of the season. I think it'd be massive. But yeah, just the manner in which they did when I think you had to put them in the winners of the weekend. And now finally, yes, I will get a touch bias. I will be putting Chelsea into the winners of the weekend. They apologies, my throat was sore. They grab a win over Brentford, and trying to downplay that we're in a title race right now, acting like we're not. But yeah, no, Chelsea 100% have found themselves in a title race. Like, we can't say otherwise at this point. They're 2 points off Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool do have a game in hand, so do preface that with the fact that Liverpool have a game in hand. But Chelsea 2 points off the top spot, 4 points ahead of Arsenal, who people thought this could have been the year. Still could be, if we're being honest. Still could be their year. But at the start of the season, people thought Arsenal could really feasibly win this league. City are 7 points off Chelsea, 3 points off Arsenal, 9 points off Liverpool. And like I said, Liverpool have that game in hand. Who knows when that's going to be played? Who knows what that could entail? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, no, at the moment, Chelsea flying. They're taking advantage of a very nice run of games in this schedule. So we'll kind of see where things end in this kind of run of games. I think that it kind of comes to an end very soon. But yeah, they start out the season with a very tough run of games, and now they're kind of in amongst the, don't want to say easier run of games, but definitely a doable run of games. But yeah, no, definitely found themselves in a title race. We just can't deny it at this point now, can we? But yeah, moving into underperformers of the weekend. I mean, do you want to say it, or do I want to say it? Man City. They're probably always going to be an underperformers of the weekend until they actually get out of this rut. I mean, credit to them. It looked like they were on their way to a win, and then they weren't. Kunes just decided to forget how to play football. Takes out a United player for a penalty. Fernandez scores it. And then Diallo then scores in the dying minutes. And they win. And City loses. It's just kind of the same problems that plague City, I think, really. Just underperforming squad, aging squad. I was having the conversation the other day. It's very interesting when you look at the players that they've let go in the last couple of years. I'm talking your Romeo Lavias, Cole Palmers, Morgan Rogers, Liam Delap's. And they've let these players go who are these young guys, and they're showing that they're very good, as we've seen. But these are guys that could be doing a job for them right now and would be young. They'd be hungry. It'd be a good time to start turning the squad over, starting that rebuild period. But no, now they just have to start from square one. Either hope that the academy is going to push forward a good few players, or the academy, not the academy, or the checkbooks are going to come out and they're going to sign a bunch of players. But yeah, at the moment, just you're losing to Manchester United in a big must-win. It was a must-win derby for both teams, by the way. So one of these teams was probably going to be on the underperformers of the weekend. But you're losing to Manchester United in that fashion too. In the last 2 minutes, really. It's just not good, and it really just sums up Manchester City at the moment in the driver's seat all game long, and then give it up. So it's hard to not put them in here, but we'll kind of move away from them because I feel like I'm always harping on City. Another underperformer, I think, has to be Southampton. You're going through managerial change now. I don't know what that's going to do for them, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think the problem was the manager. You know, maybe he was a problem, but he wasn't the problem. So I really don't think you're just going to bring someone in now and, oh, fortune's turned around, guys. Great escape starts now. Like, I really don't think that's the case. And like I said, 5-0 Tottenham, kind of hard not to put you in here. You know what I mean? My final one, I'm kind of going to pick on Arsenal a little bit. 0-0 against Everton at home. You don't have enough to beat them. I don't know. Sean Dyche set up Everton very well here. They set them up to frustrate Arsenal, which they did, and they did very well. Arsenal just couldn't find any creativity or joy in open play. Set pieces weren't really hitting on the day, and Everton get out of there kind of laughing, honestly. Just like, yeah, it's 0-0, so it's not the worst thing ever for Arsenal, but I think those are the games that you really have to win against, you know, your Evertons, kind of the lower teams. You gotta get those wins, especially when you're in the title race. It's just not ideal. Like, it's not a title ending result, nothing like that. But you gotta rack up the points here. You gotta find a way to win these games, these frustrating games, and that's, like I've always said with Arsenal, they don't really strike me as champions because they miss those champion moments. And a champion level team, I think, finds a win in these types of games, and they just didn't. And I think that's what kind of separates them. Once they are starting, if they ever kind of get to that point where they get these wins in these moments where they've been frustrated all game, it hasn't gone their way, but you dig in and you find a win, I think that's kind of what makes you a championship caliber team. And to me, they've never done that, and they didn't do it here. Now, like I said, it's a draw, so it's better than a loss, but you got to win those games. But we move into our performance of the weekend. I've got a couple, so you're going to stick with me on these. First, we're actually moving into Crystal Palace and Brighton, which, by the way, is a rivalry, if you didn't know. No, I'm not kidding. It's true. Look into it. It's kind of really funny that these two teams are just rivals with each other. But anyways, Ismail Sarr. Big performance from him. 1 goal, 2 assists, fingerprints all over this Palace performance. And he was really, really finding his joy in that kind of right wing, right forward kind of spot that he found himself just kind of behind Mateta, more off to the right. And just really causing the Brighton defense problems all day long. They just couldn't deal with his quick feet, his trickery. And he takes his goals extremely nicely, sets up one as well. It's a very good performance from him, and kind of, one of those performances that you'd like to see consistently from him. He's came to Crystal Palace this summer. He's been in the Prem before, of course, with Watford, but he did this at Watford. He'd have these games where he just takes it by the scruff of the neck, and we're just not losing today. Like, if I have my say, we're not losing today. He did it at Watford, so hopefully he can kind of rack up these performances at Crystal Palace. Maybe if he does it even consistently, we're talking about him like how we were talking about Elise, or how I kind of talk about Eze. Sorry, I just really like Eze, but we're kind of talking about him in that kind of caliber, and he has to do this a little bit more often, obviously, but yeah, definitely a big performance from him, and extremely impressive, I think, for the 26-year-old. So yeah, he's in there for me. Another performance, I do bring it back to Fulham and Liverpool. I do have to say Robinson kind of ran the show down his left side. I thought dealt with Mohamed Salah really well, I think. And outside of that, was a very big creative outlet for Fulham on the attacking sense. Like I said, provided 2 assists on the day, but also just really making himself available for whether it was Iwobi or Wilson when they were kind of flip-flopping. And then Pereira as well, just really open, available, like you want your fullback to be, running those overlaps, the underlaps, inverting, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm not really for this whole inverting whatever, but doing all that stuff real well, and it just, like I said at the start of the episode, it kind of, we've seen him now kind of really mature in this league, and we're starting to see him become one of the better left backs in this league. And I don't think it's shocking, because you saw the potential in his early days at Fulham, and they've stuck with him. They never sold him. They've really persisted with him, and they're kind of reaping the rewards of that. I mean, he was wearing the captain's armband, and I think it was fitting. It felt like that coming of age performance that I kind of talked about with Charter on Brentford a couple weeks ago when he got his hat trick, I believe it was. It felt like that coming of age performance from there, and I feel like this feels like a coming of age performance for Robinson. So that's why I'm putting him in here. Moving into moment of the weekend, and if you know me and if you know that Ipswich did well, Ipswich is getting into the moment of the weekend because, like I've said, kind of the honorary rooter of Ipswich, if you will. So yeah, I mean, just not gonna spend too much time on it because I did already cover this game a little bit. But yeah, scoring in the with the last real kick of the game to score the winner away from home and running off, ripping your shirt off and running, doing the perfect knee slide to your fans. I think that's what the game is kind of all about. So I just kind of have to put that in here. And then, I mean, you could probably copy and paste that and put it for Nottingham Forest as well against Villa because they did the same thing. And also, as I'm recording this, by the way, Tajon's Inter Milan are 5-0 up on Lazio in the 83rd minute, and Tajon just came in the 80th minute, so just want to add that as we are the Maple Footy podcast. But that will swiftly take us into the relegation zone. Yeah, I mean... Do you want to take a guess on who's in the relegation zone? Yeah, Southampton anchored to the bottom, I would say. I don't even think it's rooted at this point anymore. Yeah, they're going down. I don't think a managerial change is going to help them. I don't know who they bring in. I don't know what miracle worker they can get, but I think it's a lost cause at this point. As I say every week, I feel for their fans. I think they deserve a lot better than this. But yeah, I don't have much faith here. Just above them is Wolves, who will also be going through managerial change. Wolves, who I have been saying I do think have enough to stay up, but as the season goes on, I begin to question that because I really thought that this stretch of games would be the stretch of games where they really find themselves getting into those safe spots. That's not happened. It hasn't happened. So... maybe a new managerial change will help them. Once again, I think that their problems are much deeper than just the manager, but I have more faith in them than I do, say, in the Saints. I think Wolves have some class players, but yeah, they really need to turn it around. They really need to turn it around to prove me right here. I've been saying that they will turn this around, but my goodness, they don't look like they want to prove me right here. Just above Wolves, of course, is Ipswich. 3 points up on Wolves, 2 points behind Leicester. That win, I do think, is massive. I don't think Ipswich are out of the woods just yet, obviously, as they are still in the relegation zone, but I do think they still have a lot of work to do. But yeah, it would be very nice to see them really turn this around. They've really made themselves, for me, in my opinion at least, a very likable team, one that you kind of want to root for. Just above them is Leicester, who have been extremely spotty in their new manager bounce, so maybe hopefully Wolves or Southampton have a better new manager bounce than Leicester. But yeah, Leicester still find themselves in the relegation fight. I don't think that that's going to change until the end of the season. Like I said, if they do stay up, I don't think they stay up based on them. I think they stay up based on the fact that there were 3 teams worse than them. Just above them are the kings of that. There was just people worse than them, and that's why they stayed up, and that's Everton. I say that because the last couple of seasons, it's really felt like it should be Everton's time to get relegated, and then they just don't, because it feels like there was 3 teams that were just worse than them. But yeah, Everton kind of find themselves slowly getting dragged back in this relegation fight. I know a few weeks ago it felt like they were not safe, of course, but were kind of out of it for a little bit. But now 3 points separates them in the drop at the moment. So I think they're back in this, guys. I have faith in them probably the most of all 5 of these teams because of one man, and that is Sean Dyche. And I do have a love for that man that no one will ever quite understand. Anyways, moving away from my Sean Dyche man crush, we talk about the European places. And yeah, I mean, as I've said over the weeks, it feels like you could honestly talk about most of the top 10 in the European places. But yeah, at the moment, you've got Nottingham Forest in 4th, Manchester City in 5th. That's crazy to really think about, given that we thought that they'd kind of be at least fighting for a league title here. Not over for them, I don't think. If there's any team that's capable of just casually stringing together a 17-match run, it is Manchester City. Just below Manchester City, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, Brighton, Spurs, and Brentford. So yeah, pretty big pack there. And you can even throw in Newcastle there too. Actually, they have the same amount of points as Brentford as well. So I think from here it's anyone's game. They have been extremely impressive, this batch of teams. Like I said, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, Brighton, Brentford. They've really impressed me this season, and I would love to see them in the mix going through the rest of the season. But yeah, Nottingham Forest, extremely impressive too. In 4th right now. If the season ended tonight, they would be in the Champions League spots. I can't believe that. That's massive. I love that. Let's keep that coming, please, honestly. Moving, of course, after Europe is the title race. Right now, I would say it's still the 3 teams of Liverpool, Chelsea, even if we wanted to deny it, if we're in a title race or not, and Arsenal. Liverpool still having that game in hand in their back pocket. I still don't know when that's going to be played. Still looking at the schedule for Liverpool, for all these teams, of course, is massive. But Liverpool, just because they're in Europe and then still in, I believe, all cup competitions. I don't think they're on the Carabao Cup. They're definitely still in the FA Cup, of course, but they have a schedule that doesn't really leave room for replays or anything like that. So I don't know when that game is going to get played. So, but regardless, still find themselves 2 points up, and this is why I said back when I said it, that would they have a 9-point lead, whatever it was, they'll know that can go away. And even if they say win their game in hand, that 9's been cut down to 5 already. And that's if they win the game in hand. You know what I mean? So it just shows you how quickly the Premier League changes, especially at this time of year. Because even in like 3 more game weeks, we could be going, oh, remember when Chelsea was in the title race? And now they're in 5th, you know? It's one of those things, really, that you kind of look at. But yeah, the title race is looking pretty tasty right now, actually. I think it's one of the more fun ones that we might get to see in we have seen, at least in the last couple of seasons, because the last few seasons it really has just felt like City's just gonna win it, and then they did, and hey, they might still here, but right now at least you kind of got Chelsea still knocking on the door. I do think Arsenal is still in this. I know they're 4 points behind Chelsea, 6 points behind Liverpool, but it does really feel like Arsenal is still in this. I think they do have quality. When you have players like Bukayo Saka, I think it is possible. I think some of their team needs to get it together, I would say. Their defense looks strong, of course. But yeah, I think just creatively, attacking sense, I think they really need to get it together. Chelsea, to their part, I think they need a better goalkeeper if they want to actually be considered real title contenders, I would say. Outside of that, I think they look pretty good. I mean, Moise Caicedo, I think, to me, has been one of the best players in the league this season. I could definitely make a case for him to be the best player in the league this season. That's how good I think he's been. Cole Palmer, Pedro Neto, Nicholas Jackson, Enzo Fernandez, they've all been very good, and I know I'm missing a bunch of guys. And their defense looks pretty solid too. They look young at times, I do think. They make some naive errors. I think that you will see in maybe 2-3 years. They probably won't be making those. But right now, they're still very young. And then, of course, you got Liverpool, who are grinding out results. I know the last couple results have been draws, but they grind out these results. They find a way to get the result, and they get it. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's extremely interesting. 3 teams that kind of complement each other, I think, quite well. And then if you still want to count City in the title race, because I don't think you can ever truly count them out unless they're mathematically out, I think it could be interesting. We're 16 games in, except for Liverpool, they're 15 games in, but 16 games in and still going strong. It's been very interesting. I think it's been a fun season so far. It's been good to watch. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. But yeah, with all that being said, that kind of brings me to a close on this episode of Maple Footy. So do all the things, like all that stuff. Follow me along wherever you want. If this was your first episode listening, I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. If this is your 46th, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if it's anywhere in between, thank you very much. I hope that you come back for next episode. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great week. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.